Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, I shut the computer down every single night. The tale of Miss Jones. But the phone belongs to the night shift. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. I shut the computer down every single night. Whenever a user puts in a ticket about their computer being slow, the first thing I do is check the uptime. 9 times out of 10, there's a system uptime, on Windows 7 at that, of well over 40 days, and a reboot clears up all their problems. Occasionally, a user argues about this, and today was one of those days. This particular user was one of our regional directors, so not really anyone I could report her to for her completely terrible behavior, because the VP that oversees them is just as bad, but whatever. I got a sysadmin job offer from a different company yesterday, and am putting in my notice tomorrow, so I don't honestly even care at this point. As I was explaining to her that we recommend rebooting computers once every 7 days just as a maintenance thing, she interrupts me with, No, do not even tell me to reboot the computer. I shut it down every single night. Okay. We also commonly see users who think logging off is rebooting or turning the monitor off is shutting the computer off, and none of the computers are all-in-ones, so it's not an iMac case where there could be confusion as to the difference between the screen and the computer itself. I tell her Windows is reporting an uptime of 41 days 19 hours 52 minutes. Well, the computer is lying, because I literally shut it down every night. Okay, sure, let's pretend the OS is lying and trying to make you look bad. I'll play along. I asked her to walk me through how she shuts the computer down, as I was remote onto the system. One big, heavy, pretty sure she was rolling her eyes at me sigh later, and I get there. I shut it down. The computer is still on. If it were off, I'd have been disconnected. I can still move around and open programs. The computer is definitely not shut down. Yes, it is, the screen is black. Did you press the button on the monitor? That's how you shut a computer down. Are you new? No. I'm not new. I've been doing jobs like this since 1997. I've also been in the position at my soon-to-be former employer for just over a year, so definitely not new. I try to explain to her the difference between a computer and a monitor, and she argues with me for a good 5 minutes about how I'm wrong. Different tactic. Okay, well, let's move on. Let me walk you through how IT recommends shutting a computer down. She agrees along with a snide comment about how we're always telling them to do things incorrectly somehow. Whatever. With her watching, I walk her step by step through just rebooting the computer and add in, if you want to turn it off, click on shut down instead of restart. Mostly, I didn't want to shut it down because I wasn't entirely confident I could convince her to push the power button on the tower to turn it back on, and she'd have lost her mind thinking I broke the computer somehow. That should be it, but nah, I'm not that lucky today. Instead, she flips and starts yelling at me about how I broke the computer because Windows went away, and now there's this black screen with all kinds of words, just the post screen, and how she'd be talking to the IT director and CIO if I got her documents deleted. Mid-freak out at me, the computer finishes rebooting and drops her back at the Windows logon screen. After she logged in, I showed her the system uptime again, which was now reporting about 3 minutes. Oh. No apology for being fantastically incorrect or yelling at me about it, because why would she want to do that? And of course, it was running fine after a reboot. IT director threw out the 1-star review she gave me, trying to state that I was rude to her and acted like she didn't know how to use a computer, primarily because he overheard my half of the conversation. The tale of Miss Jones. The first time Miss Jones' system had a problem, she didn't think to call tech support. Miss Jones was a nice lady. She was sweet, armed with a pocket photo album of children and cats, which she constantly mixed up the names of, and with a cubicle so decorated as to give the impression that simply by passing by, one was suddenly suffering from a stroke taking the form of a hallucination of the best parts of the 1940s. She also baked for the entire office. Every other day she would come in with some form of delicious pastry or another, and I can firmly say that they were edible at least 50% of the time. We aren't going to talk about the ham and jam tarts. The one weakness Miss Jones had was that she was, unfortunately, terribly stubborn. And so it was, the first time her system went down she didn't call us. She was in the middle of using the company's proprietary Google Docs-like collaboration software when her system experienced some kind of issue and disconnected from the network. To most users this would be obvious because the program would lock up and not allow further text added to the document. It was also a simple fix of resetting something on my end, and most users did on their own. But not to Miss Jones. Miss Jones, who understood that computers were basically voodoo boxes and some kind of car battery hooked up to the Library of Congress via some kind of garden hose, assumed that when she typed on the keyboard and it didn't show up on the screen, the computer was just too slow and couldn't keep up with her. So she kept typing. "I understand, Miss Jones," I said over the phone politely after having listened to her gabble on for a few minutes about her newest grandchild who was probably named Mr. Whiskerpuffs, "and I'd be happy to fix that issue for you." "Did this start a few minutes ago?" No, she replied cheerfully. "It happened this morning around 9. I thought it was just being, slow. So I didn't jump the gun, and I kept typing for a bit. I'm not the kind of lady to jump the gun on these things, so I waited until I was sure there was a problem before I thought to call you. Maybe you can make it, I don't know, catch up to me. It's so far behind now." I looked at my clock. It was 4 p.m. She had been typing away into a non-responsive document for almost 8 hours. I politely told Miss Jones that next time, it was perfectly okay for her to call me if it looked like the computer was going slow. And then I reset the program and set her on her way. The second time Miss Jones' system had a problem, she didn't think to call tech support. "Miss Jones," I said most politely, though on my end of the line I had facepalmed hard enough to bend my glasses, "I do so wish you had reached out to us on Tuesday when this happened. It's a simple fix, but that work you did for the last couple of days, it's likely unrecoverable." She seemed okay with this. "Well, dearie, I guess I'm just not cut out for these magic boxes, She laughed. I fixed her problem. She went about her merry way. "Miss Jones," I said pleadingly, wondering if a sacrifice to Saint Isidore of Seville might be appropriate at this hour of 2 a.m., when Miss Jones had called me up at home because after working late she realized that her system was being slow again. "I can help you, but why did you wait this long to dash?" "I didn't want to bother you, dear," she said innocently, "and as it kept getting later I was afraid I'd be bothering you at home, or in bed, but now I just don't know what to do." I sighed and started fixing the issue for her. She went silent while I worked, and then, once I was finished, she spoke up again. "Maybe I'm just too old for these silly boxes." Her voice was filled with such a heart-wrenchingly sweet and despondent tone that I just did not have the heart to be mad at this woman. "No," I insisted. "Let's just try to figure out a way to make this work." So the next day I coded a small monitor program and stuck it on her computer. Whenever the program disconnected, it would pop up a little box that said this box stopped working by accident. Call clickety_clickety straight away, with a big smiley face. But it was too late. She called me the next day. They asked me if I was interested in an early retirement, she told me after having called the hotline. Her computer wasn't broken, she just wanted to call and let me know I wouldn't be hearing from her anymore. A part of me felt a little broken at the news, not because of the hard work I put into keeping her up and running, but because despite being constantly aggravatingly naive about computers, there was something about the fact that she legitimately tried to make my job easier that struck me as so pure and rare. She wasn't making my job harder, per se, and the only person suffering from her lack of expediency in filing tickets was herself. So I went to her retirement party and said hello, and she gave me a big hug, and then showed me pictures of her new cat who was either named Truffle Cake or John, and she told me about the things she was planning to do with the extra year of retirement that had been so haphazardly tacked on. And then the party was over and Miss Jones was gone, with her 1940s decorations, and her grandchildren and her cats and her computer and her. Wait, her computer. Yes. She had taken her computer. The whole thing. And she had walked right out the door with it, and no one had stopped her. So I had to go visit her at home to get it back. So I went to the address HR had on file for her, and discovered that there wasn't a building there, and hadn't been since the late 1970s. Apparently she had moved, hopefully, and never updated HR. So now, somewhere out there today, there is a computer. It's probably sitting on top of a mantelpiece somewhere as a souvenir of the world we live in, how completely overrun with technology we have become to the point where those who don't adopt it are strange and outcast. And there's a lady, who is probably humming to herself and knitting, sitting nearby, living in her own old-fashioned world. She is a relic that becomes rarer and rarer in our society, and while the majority of those like her are angry and bitter at being left behind and ignorant of the advances of innovation, she is perfectly content. I'll miss you, Miss Jones, wherever you are. But the phone belongs to the night shift. We're running an extended pilot with some new cell phones and MDM software on it. The MDM solution allows the support company to do all kinds of neat stuff, including a remote control option. But as many stories do, this one starts with a ticket. This one labeled phone 266 isn't working. The ticket has some of the necessary info, mainly that the IQ app, the MDM one, doesn't allow them to log in, stating that the PIN code is incorrect. Well, I can't do anything with these phones, so I bump the ticket to the supplier, and they quickly respond, I mean these guys are really quick, if we can turn the phone on so they can log in remotely, and see what's what. I inform the user, turn the phone on, then call the supplier's number, and from there on they will take over. To which I get the genius reply. Sorry, but this phone belongs to the night shift. I made the report while working. It's always off during the daytime.